Hey guys, it's Luke bringing you a preview for this week's Northern Trust Championship, the first leg of the FedEx Cup playoffs. We're teeing it up in Liberty National Golf Course. That is in Jersey City, New Jersey, overlooking Manhattan. It's absolutely beautiful. You got the Statue of Liberty right there, hence its name. And we're in store for an absolute slugfest. We have the top 125 in the FedEx Cup rankings, vying for FedEx Cup position. We have a ton of points on the board available, as well as a ton of money for the players to win. And it's not just money for the players this week. Of course, we've got our Draftkings contest, our outright bets, all of those markets as well to make money ourselves. In this video, we're going to be previewing the events field. We're going over a full course breakdown, as well as my top 3 key metrics for analysis at Liberty National Golf Course. So whether you're betting outrights, playing daily fantasy sports, just watching as a casual fan, whatever it may be, my goal is to help you get ready for this weekend. Again, we're going to be going over the types of players I expect to do well with the course breakdown, as well as some of the key metrics to look out for if you're doing your own analysis. My approach to all fantasy sports is data-based. I try to take statistical analysis, modeling, and implement that in daily fantasy sports to make it easier for everyone to understand. So all of my analysis is going to have that in mind. And while I started my modeling to take on daily fantasy sports, to take on outright bets, it also gives you a good idea of the type of players to expect to do well. So if you're just trying to get ready for the tournament, wondering who's going to do well this weekend, this type of analysis works just as well. So without further delay though, let's hop into the Northern Trust, huh? The field for this week's event is the top 125 in the FedEx Cup rankings. We're going to have a normal cut this week though, with the top 65 and ties making it to the weekend. Normal stroke play rules, and essentially it's the top 125 players over the entire season. Players who got into the playoffs at the Wyndham Championship that weren't in them before include Chesson Hadley, Roger Sloan, also Scott Piercy. Some of the people that were on the bubble, maybe just inside the top 125 that kept that position, include Adam Scott, Arnaban Lahiri, Bryce Garnett, Matt Kuchar, and CT Pan, just to name a few. Unfortunately, there were some guys that obviously dropped out of the top 125, a little bit heartbreaking for these guys. Some of them include Justin Rose, Ryan Armour, Patrick Rogers, and Bo Hogue. So unfortunately, their seasons are ending. They will be in the 125 to 150 category coming up next season. While there's too many headlines to cover, there were a lot more storylines at the Wyndham Championship. One thing's for sure is that at the Northern Trust this week, there's going to be a lot of excitement. They're volatile by design, the playoffs. There's a ton of points at lie. It's 3 times the FedEx Cup points for a week like this. And also, we get a lot of guys through the cut. So you're going to have a lot of the field playing on the weekend. Even with, this type of field, you're going to get 75, 80 guys through the cut. And as a result, you're going to get a lot of fireworks. People that just make it on the cut are going to be in contention come Sunday. And these playoff events are a lot of fun as a result. Taking a look at some of the players that are going to be in contention this week for next week's BMW Championship, historically the top 50 in the rankings are pretty safe to get to the BMW Championship. It's just the top 70 that are going to be teeing it up next week. So the guys that are in that 50 to 70 range, or even that 70 to 90 range, have a lot to play for. People that are in that 90 to 125 range really need a lot to happen to end up in that top 70, usually a top 10 finish or something like that, just to really set the stage for everyone this week. After the BMW Championship, the top 30 will make it to East Lake. So making sure you can get a win over these next 3 events is essentially a ticket to that event. Last year, we saw DJ rout the field at the Northern Trust. That was at TPC Boston. He won by nearly 10 strokes. And obviously, he was able to ride that momentum the entire way throughout the playoffs to a tour championship. So somebody this year is likely to come out the gate, rout the field a little bit, get some momentum. And let's see who it ends up being this week. Into the course breakdown, we have Liberty National Golf Course this week. It is in Jersey City, New Jersey. We've seen it 3 times on tour before, all for playoff events. The first 2 iterations were for the Barclays back in the early 2000s. We last saw it back in 2019 for the Northern Trust, though. We also saw it in 2017 for the President's Cup. That was widely televised as well, so that gives us a good look at the venue. It is a par 71 track measuring at just over 7,400 yards. It's a little bit longer than the tour average, and to be honest, the distance is utilized very well. You have some Brutus holes out there combined with some shorter ones as well, so you get a very good mix in terms of your distances. In terms of grass type, we have bent grass fairways and greens this week. We also have very small greens as well. They're about 5,000 square foot on average, making them in the bottom 10% of courses on tour. In terms of designers, we have Bob Cupp and Tom Kite, a revolutionary, double design here. It was also renovated after the last Barclays playoff event in 2009, and we've seen it in its current form twice before, and the President's Cup and the Northern Trust, like I said. And at both of these venues, it gave us a really good look at the venue. At both venues, people that were ball strikers ended up doing extremely well. We saw Patrick Reed win the last time out at the Barclays. Adam Scott won back in 2009 at the Barclays. The winning score was minus 16 the last time out, and the course was generally gettable. The scoring average was 69.9, so 1.1 shots under par, and it really has a wide open look in terms of Liberty National. There's not many trees in play. It's only on a few holes where you're going to have a tree-lined fairway, but you're going to get a lot of varying looks off the tee. You have wide fairways, you have narrow fairways, you have split fairways with bunkers in the middle, you have fairways with lakes on the side of them, heavily bunkered fairways. So essentially every single tee shot at Liberty National is different. On top of that, we also have a course that's receptive. It tends to be a little bit softer than most golf courses because it is right on the bay there, right next to Manhattan. Because it tends to be very rainy in the summer months in New York, you end up getting a golf course where you can throw darts. So we've seen the winning score get to minus 15, minus 16, but don't really let that fool you. I mean, this is a course that definitely has its teeth. It resembles a PGA Championship in my opinion. That's why I have the PGA Championship swag on right now. It definitely doesn't represent, a US Open where the rough is penal. It really gets you when you have to be accurate. At a PGA Championship, you deal with angles you have to set up. You deal with bunkers, water hazards. You deal with having to play with precision rather than with brute strength. And that's what you're going to get this week. Is a little bit of rough this week. It is a primary cut. It's about 3-4 inches long, what they're used to seeing on a normal PGA Tour stop. What's notable though is that there is a lot of fescue grass. There are patches of it all around the property. Some of it's in play, some of it is not in play at all. A majority of it is in between holes, so unless you're missing by 50, 60 yards, it's not going to come into play. But on a few of the signature holes at Liberty National, it does come into play. Most notably on a few of the par 5s, right at about 330, right at 340 yards, there are patches of fescue that come right into the fairway. So the designers were very clever with making sure these patches were in play at times and not in play at others. So if players are going to be smart this week, they should be treating those as if they're water hazards. If you hit into that, you're most likely not even going to find your ball. And on top of the fescue grass, we also have a lot of water in play. It's on play in 16 of 18 holes. We also have bunkering in all 18 holes. So all around, this course demands precision, whether it's off the tee with all the varying looks, whether it's into greens with all the water, all the bunkers in play as well. If you're not precise with your ball striking, you're going to get in a ton of trouble at Liberty National. But on the flip side, if you are on with your ball striking, if you can keep the ball in play, if you can hit some good iron shots, it's very gettable. We saw last year rounds in the low 60s. We saw Patrick Reed obviously reach that minus 16 under par. I expect a very similar winning score this time around. Wind's not usually an issue in Manhattan, especially during the summer at Liberty National. So it's really the ball strikers that come out that hit the ball the best this week are going to win. That's usually the recipe for success for my channel. I'm somebody who loves targeting ball strikers, and this week at Liberty National is not going to be any different. And now for my key metrics. Without sufficient data at Liberty National, again, we've only seen it 3 times, only once during the shot link era. We're going to have to rely on expertise as a golf handicapper a little bit more than usual this week. In these cases, I try to stick to the basics as much as possible. So I consider what works on most golf courses. What are the most important stats week to week, regardless of the setup. What do we know about Liberty National that is without a doubt true? Obviously, setups change year to year, especially when it's a course that's newer on the rotation. So what do we know is going to be consistent from year to year, and what can we act on in terms of our modeling? Well, when we take a look at the 2019 leaderboard, it becomes very apparent that this is a ball strikers golf course. Taking a lot of looks at the overviews, again, the bunkering seems very precise. They're usually at the 300 to 330 yard mark off the tee. You also have a lot of water hazards in play, again, on 16 of 18 holes. And overall, this golf course, it's challenging. If you're not precise with your irons, there are plenty of hazards, like I mentioned. It's also relatively hard to score from the fescue or the rough here. So it's a ball striker's affair. And not only did every player in the top 12 gain strokes on approach in the 2019 iteration, every single one gained around the green and from tee to green. So you saw just how important ball striking was in terms of finishing position. And I think with years of data coming in, that will only come to fruition in my correlation models. But without those correlation models, let's hop into what my key metrics are as of right now. At number 3, we have shots gained around the green. As I mentioned, every player in the top 12 gained around the green, and this makes perfect sense when we consider the green size. These are in the bottom 10% of green sizes on tour, and while the gains were minimal, it shows just how important being able to get up and down can be. When the greens are this small, even the best ball strikers are going to miss a handful every time, and if you're horrible at chipping, you're losing a stroke or two to the field every round, that's not going to pay off. It's going to be extremely hard for somebody that's bad around the green to really keep pace at an event like this. And really the only aberration at the 2019 iteration was Abraham Ancer. Abraham Ancer ended up finishing third at Liberty National, which was a huge surprise, especially if you take a look at the guys priced around him and the guys that finished in that high-end range. He usually leaks strokes around the green. The reason why he got away with it is he didn't miss many greens at all. He led the field in shots gained approach, which I don't want to give it away now. It is my number one key stat. So if you're going to be bad at around the green, you're going to have to be an absolute ball striking specialist. So for the guys that aren't elite ball strikers, this is one of the key stats that I'm definitely looking at for this week. At number 2, we have shots gained off the tee. We're also looking for guys that can hit the ball long, guys that can also keep it in play as well. Like I mentioned, there are a ton of water hazards. We're also dealing with a relatively beefy golf course as well, with a par 71 and almost 7,500 yards. And a lot of the players we saw compete in 2019 were at least gaining off the tee. Only 2 or 3 of them lost strokes to the field, and every single one of them had a few water balls in the week. At least one. Usually they had 1 or even 2 of them. And as a result, I'm looking at that heavily this week. We saw Rory McIlroy finish in the top 5. He gained nearly 8 strokes off the tee. Hell, even Abraham Ancer gained nearly 6 strokes off the tee. So definitely something I'm considering in my modeling, and it makes perfect sense with a relatively long golf course, and especially one with so many hazards. And at number 1, like I foreshadowed there a second ago, shots gained approach. This is the number 1 key stat week to week. It is routinely the most important stat, regardless of the venue. And like I said, everyone in the top 12 last time out gained on approach, and they also all gained significantly. In fact, if we take a look at the top 10 in terms of shots gained approach on the week, every single one of them finished in the top 15. So extremely correlated right there. It's correlated like that week to week, so that's no surprise. It's even further so, more evident when we consider the green size. You're dealing with relatively small greens, so the guys that have the best proximity are going to hit more greens than their peers. When we have golf courses with massive greens, sometimes that effect can be mitigated a bit. We see it at Detroit Golf Club. Some of the guys that putt well tend to be better than some of the ball strikers. It's definitely going to be the opposite this week. We're looking for guys that can stripe their irons, guys like Abraham Ancer that maybe even maybe able to overcome their around the green woes with good iron play. That's all I've got for this week's golf preview, guys. I'm excited to see what this year's playoff race has in store for us and who eventually is going to put their name in history. Thanks for watching. Like I said, I really appreciate the viewership a lot. If you guys are looking for golf content catered specifically for fantasy golf or daily fantasy sports, keep an eye out on my channel for some Draftkings content. I also cover outright bets, all that sort of stuff. So subscribe to the channel so you guys don't miss out on any of that content. On top of my video content, I also offer access to my Patreon page where you get full projections for every PGA Tour player and every PGA Tour event. There I have projections for every player, like I mentioned. I also give ownership projections, game theory notes, my model rankings, how well they fit in my models, all that kind of good stuff. So it's just $1 for the month right now. It is a great value, so make sure to take advantage of the link in the description. Once I have all my tools incorporated as well, I'm going to be putting a lineup builder on there. We're going to be putting on even more of my custom model rankings. I'm going to put a model that you guys can actually customize yourself. So I'll give you guys my baseline model for the week. If you guys want to incorporate shots gained putting a little bit more than I do, then you guys will be able to make those adjustments. We're also going to be putting some of the visualizations that I make for DFS in terms of value visualizations. I have a few matrix applications that I use as well, where I can give you guys an idea of who's playing above or below their baselines, that sort of stuff. So I'm going to have all that on there for you guys. So right now it's just $1. You guys can get a taste of what it looks like before next season. Again, I really appreciate the support. If you guys are viewing, make sure to like and subscribe. It really helps me out a lot. And until next week, guys, in the BMW Championship, I'll see you guys till then.